Welcome back to the Cap Rack. It is Tuesday, August 11th. We have a bunch of MLB games today, almost a full slate. I think there's only one postponement with the St. Louis Cardinals and their entire coronavirus situation. There's 7 NBA games and the first round of the NHL Stanley Cup playoffs. So I'm going to start here with the MLB. The first game today is at 6:37 between Miami and Toronto. We got Miami at plus 156, Toronto at minus 180. On the mound for the Marlins is Eliezer Hernandez, and for the Blue Jays is Hyunjin Ryu. I don't really have a play on this much. If I had to, I'd pick Toronto, but Miami has been kind of sneaky since their entire COVID quarantine, lockdown, whatever you want to call it. So I don't know. I'd like Toronto. I think they're a sneaky young team. Their lineup has the ability to put up runs against a pretty weak Miami pitching staff, but I don't have a play on this one today. Moving on, we have the Kansas City Royals visiting the Cincinnati Reds. The Reds are minus 198 on the money line. Kansas City is running out Chris Bubik, and for the Reds is Luis Castillo. If you have to play this, play the Reds. I think they're starting to surge a little bit, starting to figure it out and get their footing. I think just the line is a little too steep here. I know they're home. They should win this, but if you want to throw the Reds in, throw it in a parlay, but I wouldn't take it straight at minus 200. Next, at 7:05, we have the Atlanta Braves and the New York Yankees at Yankee Stadium. It's Touki Toussaint for the Braves and Jordan Montgomery for the Yankees. The Yankees are minus 170 on the money line here, and as I'm a Yankee fan, it kind of pains me to say this, but one of my picks for today is going to be the Braves at plus 150 or 146. I just think that Jordan Montgomery wasn't great in his last start. I mean, not that I don't think it, he wasn't. But I think the Braves lineup is good enough to get to Jordan Montgomery. Scares me a little bit as a Yankee fan, but I think this is great value on Atlanta. They have a right-handed lineup aside from Freddie Freeman, who can hit both right and left-handed pitching pretty well. It's just one of these games where you have to take the value on the Braves. I mean, fandom aside. So I think this is good value. I don't know if I'm going to be betting it myself, only because I don't like to bet against my own teams or on my own teams. But for sure, I like the Braves at plus 146. Moving on, we have the Baltimore Orioles visiting the Philadelphia Phillies. It's Alex Cobb for the Orioles and Zach Wheeler for the Phillies. The Phillies are minus 200 on the money line, but I'm actually going to recommend taking them on the run line at minus 1.5. Wheeler was really good against the Yankees in their series. The Phillies ended up taking that game from the Yankees. And obviously Baltimore, they've been overperforming, but they didn't really have great expectations going into the season. And I still don't think they're a great baseball team. They're just not. It's a fact. The only thing that scares me here is the Philadelphia bullpen. If they have a 2-run lead going into the later innings, you might get screwed. I hope not, but I think this is a game where the Phillies can really run away. They scored a lot of runs against the Braves in their last series. So their bats are really coming alive, and they're starting to figure it out. So take the Phillies at minus 1.5 against Baltimore. Then we have the Cubs versus the Cleveland Indians. The Indians just had a little fiasco with Zach Plesac and Mike Clevenger leaving the team hotel to go have dinner with people. I believe when they were playing, I'm not sure, the White Sox, I think. But regardless, Cleveland's the favorite on this at minus 150 and the Cubs at plus 128. My play for this game is going to be the Cubs. I think John Lester is a better pitcher than Adam Plutko is, and the Cubs were scheduled to play the Cardinals in the last series, but obviously because the Cardinals had an outbreak within their locker room, those games got postponed, so they've had a break. But if you take a look at the flip side on that, the Cubs have a rested bullpen. They're ready to go, and I believe they're somewhere upwards of maybe like 11-4, 11-3 at this point. So they're surging. They're doing well. So take the Cubs as plus 128 underdogs here. Moving on, we have the Chicago White Sox visiting the Detroit Tigers. The line's pretty even. Both teams here at 108, minus 108. It's Gio Gonzalez versus Tyler Alexander. I don't have a play on this one. The Tigers have been sneaky good, especially at home. They're figuring out ways to score runs. I don't really know how. They don't have a very strong lineup. And Gio Gonzalez has the potential to get shelled. So I'm going to stay away from this completely. Moving on at 7:10, we have the Washington Nationals versus the New York Mets. It's Max Scherzer versus Rick Porcello. The Nationals are minus 150. on the money line. I like the Nationals here. They routed the Mets 16-4 yesterday. Scherzer is on the mound against Rick Porcello, former Cy Young, whether he deserved it or not. I think he was a 20-game winner that year, but he just hasn't really been pitching well. His first two starts were bad. His third start was pretty good. But Max Scherzer is Max Scherzer. He left his last start in the first inning, I believe with a back problem. But yeah, I like the Nationals to continue their run. I mean, their bats got hot last night against Steven Matz, but I mean, this should be a pretty easy win here. Scherzer pitches well against the Mets historically, so take the Nationals minus 150 on the road at Citi Field. Then you have the Tampa Bay Rays visiting the Boston Red Sox. It's Andrew Kittredge for the Rays and Martin Perez for the Red Sox. The line is 105 or minus 105 for both. I don't have a play on this one. It's just too even, too split down the middle. No way to really differentiate much between the two teams. Boston's got a good lineup. Tampa Bay's got a good lineup, but we just don't know what we're going to get here with Boston's lackadaisical bullpen. Same thing with the Rays. I mean, they've just been inconsistent. Moving on, which is going to be actually my last pick of the day, we have the Minnesota Twins and the Milwaukee Brewers. Tyler Clippard is going for the Twins, and Josh Lindblom, former KBO baseball standout, is going for Milwaukee. Last night, Minnesota won. I believe it was 4-1 or 4-2. Minnesota is minus 120 on the money line, but I actually like the home underdog here on the Brewers. Lindblom is just a better starting pitcher than Tyler Clippard. Milwaukee's bats are poised to wake up. I mean, Clippard wasn't great out of the bullpen. I mean, he was a former Yankee. I saw him pitch a whole lot. Kind of been a career journeyman, but he's definitely not a starting pitcher. And I don't know whether that's necessarily going to hold up against a guy like Lindblom, who hasn't been super great, but hasn't been bad. I mean, he's kept his team in games and given him a chance to win throughout his first couple starts of 2020. So take Milwaukee on the money line at plus 110. For the last pick of the day, I'm just going to run through the rest of these games. We have Pittsburgh versus St. Louis. There's actually no lines up for this right now, so I'm not going to talk much about it. I don't think starting pitchers are named for each team, but that game is happening at 8:15. Check that out on your own. And then at 8:40, we have the Diamondbacks versus the Rockies at Coors Field. Zach Gallen's going for Arizona and Kyle Freeland for Colorado. Both of them are set at minus 108. The Rockies have been pretty sneaky. Same thing with the Diamondbacks. I mean, they haven't really performed as well as the Rockies have throughout the first 15 games of the year. But if you have to take this one, I would lean Colorado. I don't have a strong pick on it. Moving on, we got Seattle and Texas. Texas is minus 152 on the money line. It's Marco Gonzalez for the Mariners and Mike Minor for the Rangers. Again, two teams kind of middle of the pack towards the bottom. Not great. I don't have a pick on this game either. Then San Francisco versus the Houston Astros. The Astros are minus 220 on the money line. It's Tyler Anderson for the Giants and Brandon Bielak for the Astros. I think there's a sneaky little value play here on the Giants, although I really would never recommend that whatsoever. The Giants are just not a great baseball team whatsoever. But minus 220 on a pitcher that I've never heard of is not something that I'm about to go do today. So we'll keep that game on the shelf. Then we have the Oakland Athletics visiting the Angels in LA. Mike Fiers for the Athletics, Dylan Bundy on the mound for the Angels, who's actually having a pretty good year. His strikeout numbers, he's got more strikeouts than he does innings pitched, which is weird for a kind of a finesse guy like Dylan Bundy. But he's been a well-needed starter for that Angels team to actually go out there every single day and perform. So Angels minus 145 on the money line. There is value here on Oakland at plus 125. They're leading the AL West. I think they're one of the better teams in the American League. Their bullpen is great. I'm going to shy away from this only because of how well Bundy's been pitching. And the Angels lineup has been coming around. Mike Trout has the dad power now. After having his kid, he's come back and just absolutely gone on a tear. I believe he was 4 for 5 last night in a comeback win for the Angels. Moving on for the last game of the day, we have San Diego visiting the Dodgers. Garrett Richards on the mound for the Padres and Ross Stripling on the mound for the Dodgers. The Padres are a really sneaky team this year. I think they're good. Fernando Tatis is definitely a star in the making. There's a good little underdog value here on the Padres. I think they have the ability to win this game. I mean, Stripling is not one of the Dodgers' better starters, but he definitely gets it done for them. But I mean, in terms of a matchup here, I think plus 156, close to 160 is good value here on the Padres if you want to take them. I mean, they've been playing really, really good baseball, but I'm not going to recommend it. The Dodgers are just that good. And if the Padres don't have one of their top starters on the mound, I don't really want to touch them necessarily yet until they're kind of in more of a trusted spot. But I would not hate you for putting a quick little underdog value play there on the Padres. Moving on, we have 7 NBA games today. Starting at 1:10, we have the Nets and the Magic. The Magic are minus 194 on the money line, 4.5-point favorites. Like I said, I don't really follow the NBA as closely to the point where I'd want to advise you guys, but I'm still going to run through the lines every single day for you. Then we have the Houston Rockets and the Spurs at 2:10. The Spurs are 2.5-point favorites, minus 142 on the money line. Now, this is interesting. This is something I can speak on. I don't know who's necessarily out for the Rockets, but taking them at plus money against a team like the Spurs, I think looks like a pretty good spot. I'm going to look into that, and I'll update you guys later. But there's that. And then we have at 440, the Phoenix Suns and the Philadelphia 76ers. The Sixers are plus 9 and plus 315 on the money line, and the Suns are minus 9 at minus 400. So my guess here is this is getting close. Teams aren't going to necessarily put out their best lineup or for the full 40 minutes. So, yeah, look, these are probably games you want to stay away from, and unless they're meaningful for seeding purposes going into the playoffs. Then we have the Celtics and the Grizzlies at 5:10. The Celtics are 3.5-point favorites, minus 162 on the money line. Then the Portland Trailblazers and the Mavericks at 6:40 Eastern. The Trailblazers are minus 3.5-point favorites, minus 165 on the money line. The total is set at 237.5. Then the Bucks and the Wizards. The Bucks are 9-point favorites, minus 400 on the money line. Total set at 231. And the New Orleans Pelicans and the Sacramento Kings at 9:10 tonight. The Kings are 1.5-point favorites. Money line's pretty equal, and the total set at 230.5. Now we're moving on to the NHL. The first round of the playoffs, we have the Columbus Blue Jackets and the Tampa Bay Lightning. I just want to preface this and say Sam Meehan has done a great job with NHL coverage so far, putting out picks, and a first-round preview is actually went up today, so go check that out on capsonsports.com. He's got a bunch of picks for today and the whole first-round preview. But as for games today, we have the Blue Jackets and the Tampa Bay Lightning at 3 o'clock. The Lightning are minus 165 favorites for game 1. Then we have the Calgary Flames and the Dallas Stars at 5:30 Eastern. The Stars are minus 120. Then the Carolina Hurricanes and the Boston Bruins at 8 p.m. The Bruins are minus 140 on the money line. Then the Blackhawks and the Vegas Golden Knights at 10:30. The Knights are minus 180 on the money line. Blackhawks plus 155. And then we have a couple more games tomorrow in the first round. But just a little quick recap of my picks for today. We got the Braves money line plus 145 versus the Yankees. The Phillies minus 1.5 versus Baltimore. Cubs money line plus 128 versus Cleveland. The Nationals money line minus 150 versus the Mets. And the Brewers money line plus 110 versus Minnesota. Like I mentioned before, for NHL picks, go check out Sam's blog today, as well as his Eastern Conference and Western Conference first-round preview. That's pretty much it. So thank you for listening, and we'll see you tomorrow morning.